Jason, why are men's groups quietly saving lives?
Yeah, man, this is such a great question and a crisis of the moment, right? There's hardly a week that goes by these days where someone doesn't forward me an article about the boy or the man crisis, the loneliness crisis, the chatbot crisis, all the many things that are impacting us men right now. And one of the simplest things I've seen that is part of that is most men lack connection, healthy connection in their lives. And it's not necessarily any fault of our own as men, but it's a byproduct of a culture of masculinity, particularly here in the States, probably down by you, a lot of parts of the world, that traditionally has taught us that to be a man means to be invulnerable and be tough and not need anyone. And obviously, there's some amazing attributes and positives to those qualities, but there's an incredible detriment to that, and actual
Mm,
research and studies that show, right, men who subscribe to highly stoic ideals like that often much more likely to commit suicide. 3 out of 4 suicides these days are men.
mm.
Um, Loneliness impacts men's health as much as smoking a pack of cigarettes a day. So lack of connection. So this is all swirling right now. And so part of why I'm here is I have this belief and mission that every man should be in a men's group. And it's really this idea that when men get connected to other men who care about them and hold them accountable, sky's really the limit in terms of how we can grow and develop and frankly move from this place of holding all of our pain inside, where when guys don't have connection, then what we do with that is we tend to just drink it away, smoke it away, eat it away, fuck it away. Pardon my language, but and that never really addresses the root thing underneath, which is this yearning for connection and to know, hey, I'm okay.
Mm.
It doesn't matter what I do necessarily in some sense. In that men's groups are the best tool I have seen for accelerating that in men, both getting them more connected and then getting them more on purpose in life.
Yeah. Jason, are you familiar with the report that came out last year? It was a UK study that was conducted about the alarming stats with regards to the young boys in this current generation. Men are lacking male role models. They're more
Yeah.
high likely to be incarcerated in jail. They are using drugs. They are reporting not having any close connections or friends. Back in the early 90s, if I remember, the number of friends a man would report having is around 6, and now that
Yep.
number is 0. Men are extremely lonely, and also the alarming suicide stats. I'm hearing more and more suicide stats. It's really alarming. And why isn't anybody talking about this more? This should be, I mean, if it was vice versa, if it was, women, it would society would have a breakdown. But why aren't we
Yeah.
talking about this more?
Yeah. I mean, this is such a deep question that can be answered from so many different levels. And I'm going to go a little meta here for just a minute as to some of the roots of where I think some of this comes from. And I think there is a biological component in that, right? The way human reproduction works, a woman can only carry one child at a time, but a man can father many. So in a population crisis, right, the limiting factor is how many available women do we have to carry children? But you could theoretically have 10 guys and repopulate quite a bit, right? Pretty fast if you had enough women. And so the downstream effect of this, which is playing out these days in all kinds of ways, is traditionally men's bodies have been more disposable, right? So the idea of we send men off to war, it's changing obviously, but militaries primarily were men for a very long time. This day and age, still most of the self-reported most dangerous jobs and toxic jobs are generally worked by men, right? Most workplace deaths, They come from men. And I'm not saying, women have it better or worse. It's like we all have challenges right now, but this is a part of what the challenge is for men. And that whole paradigm of the disposable body has kind of created this culture that then informs masculinity, that from a very young age, right? Again, it's changing, but I still see it. I hear it. I talk to men who lived it. From a very young age, boys are very often parented different than girls, right? Boy falls down, gets hurt. Oh, you're okay. You're tough. Get up. You can do it. Got that. Yeah, right? Girl falls down. There's like attunement. Okay, what's going on? Did someone hurt you? What's the, again, not saying that's just what is in a lot of ways. But what's key about that phrase that many men I know experienced as a boy, stop crying, be tough, get back up. What that signal is really telling us is what's happening in your body and what you're feeling doesn't matter. Override it with your head. Okay. And then we get into the kind of mainstream school system, which again is having these crises where the education gap between boys and girls is just growing more and more stark each year. And what happens is male bodies, just hormonally, tend to need to move more. Again, there's individual differences. This I'm talking population level here, but tend to be very kinesthetic and need to move. And so boys need to move. They're put in classes where, hey, you won't stop moving. You're a disruptive kid. You got ADHD. You're a problem child. Sit still, ignore that urge in your body, right? There it is. Then we get into adolescence where, lo and behold, that starts to come from other boys and men. Our bodies are developing at different ages. There's in-groups and out-groups. And what we learn very quickly is whatever's going on inside of you, hide it. Do not share it. Put on that front of being tough. And then we get launched into the workforce, right? Like we just said, some of the most dangerous jobs are male jobs. And at least here in the West, we celebrate. Oh, he worked 80 hours this week and slept under his desk. Guess what that does to a person's body over decades? It destroys your quality of life. And so men are trained and often rewarded from a very young age, including in sports, for disconnecting from our bodies. And this has all kinds of downstream consequences in that in the work I do, emotion starts as physical sensation. And so if we're not tuned into our bodies, literally, if we are not connected in feeling our body, guess what? It's really hard for us to feel what's going on emotionally. When we don't know what's going on emotionally, we don't know how to talk about it. We don't know how to get the help we need. And so what do? We turn to substances outside of ourselves to try to self-regulate. And if that doesn't work, the off-ramp for men often becomes, then I'm out. I'm out of this life. I can't handle this suffering and I'll commit suicide. And then there's all these cultural forces, right, that again, just make a lot of men less relational and more competitive, right? That I see other men as, oh, these guys are my competition and they're better than me. It all just swirls together to create a very real crisis. You're right. The numbers are just bleaker and bleaker every year.
Mm-hmm. I get emotional, Jason, about this because I've had close friends of mine who I've known have unfortunately taken their own lives. Yeah. And it's just so devastating. And I think society right now is in a crisis regarding what does it mean to be a man? How are men supposed to behave in society? What can we do as a society to fix this? How can we better educate not just men, but also women to support men? What can collectively we do as a society?
Yeah, this is where my argument is men need to get connected to other men. And I would say this in a twofold way. So there's kind of my mission, which I'm hammering home these days, of get men into men's groups, right? I can't tell you how many times I've bared witness to men who just the simple presence of another man, if a guy sits down and it's been hard and he just looks at that man and he says, you know what? It's been so hard. I've considered ending it. I've thought about killing myself. And the other man is just right there and says, I get it. I've been there. And just sits with him in that. right? That alone can completely transform a man's life of just, wow, I'm not alone in this, and you understand it. And I think that's one of the many challenges a lot of men have is the kind of, and let me just be very clear, I'm very pro therapy, but I think a lot of the therapeutic world is catching up as to how to talk to and support men, right? There's this
Yes.
crazy stat, James, that came out of Canada, and it just blew me away and really reformatted actually a lot of my thinking, where they said they did a study of 300 retrospectives of suicides, and it actually showed that 60% of the men had sought out some kind of help from mental health specialists in the year before. So they had reached out. It's just how they were received didn't quite meet them in what they needed. And I think some of that is men's pain is pretty unique, and other men are actually uniquely qualified to meet them in that and understand that. And that a therapeutic relationship, even though I go to therapy, I advise my clients to go to therapy, I'm a coach, coaching relationships are amazing, is very different than a peer relationship. And men's groups provide peer relationships. And what I've seen in these groups is they can create a sense of both purpose and belonging for men. Belonging meaning I'm part of. These men care about me. They are tracking me and my well-being. And so many men don't even know how badly they want that, just to know someone is paying attention to them and their pain. And then they get a sense of purpose out of it because, when you form a great group, let's say 6 to 10 guys, your presence really matters there as a man, not only in terms of what you're sharing, but your ability to show up and support other men. And so it actually gives men this kind of intimate sense of agency and purpose in life that I don't want to let my brothers down, right? Former vets often talk about this in the military, right? It's like it becomes so strong once you go through challenge with someone. You're like, I don't want to abandon them, so I'm going to keep going back. I don't want to leave them behind. And there's a way that can play out in men's groups as well. So I think there's an understanding, and for a while, I think we're out of it. So that's the good news. It was kind of taboo to talk about men's pain because for a lot of reasons in a lot of cultures, we were at the top of the hierarchy for a long time. And so there was like, well, if you talk about men's pains, you're discounting other people's pains. And that's not how I see the work at all. Like men doing men's work does not come at the cost of women doing women's work or anyone doing their work.
Mhm.
Everybody benefits. But I think we're at a point now where we can talk about things have started to shift. There's an economic gap forming. There's an education gap forming. There's the suicide gap forming. That men's pain, it's okay to talk about it now. And in fact, we need to talk about it because I'm living here in the States and we see what happens when it's not talked about. It starts to come out all kinds of sideways. And that giving men the space to talk about it, just talk about their pain. It's so simple in some sense, is transformative.
Mhm.
And to rewire this story of what it means to be a strong and healthy man. So we can do that through men's groups. And then I'm just tying back in the other big thing that is just starting to come online that is very exciting, I would say, and is really just kind of a return, is rite of passage work for young boys. In that almost every major culture back in the day, there was an actual process where boys were initiated into the culture of manhood and responsibility. This is what it means to be a responsible member of your culture. And that was all pretty much eradicated, in the West over the last 150, 200 years. But we're now seeing we really need that. Boys really need
Mm.
that. They need to spend time around mature, older men who can transmit to them what it means to be a healthy man, and
Yeah.
then walk them through a process and an actual ritual that says, hey, you're in the world now and you are responsible for yourself. And here's what we've learned in our journey that we want to pass on to you. And one of the most encouraging things I will say around that is some more research I saw that boys in particular, it doesn't even have to be a ton. And a lot of men I talk to can name, the one or two people that intervened, a coach, a teacher, an uncle, literally just one intervention from an older man who says, I see you, I care about you, what are you wanting to do with your life, and what's in the way? Just one intervention can completely change the trajectory of a boy's life, which highlights even more, though, the danger of when they don't have that at all.
Mm. Yeah, I wonder too, Jason, if the education system needs to be changed in the sense that it's very accommodating towards women, but it's not working for young boys because unfortunately, I think boys tend to sort of develop a little bit later on in life. They tend to
Yes.
mature a little bit later. And the idea of sitting still for 8 hours or 6 hours, however long kids are at school, is incredibly difficult, where boys just want to be a little bit more in tune with their body. They want to go outside. They want to play. They want to do activities. So I wonder as well too, Jason, is do you think that the education system and how it is accommodating more so for girls, is there a plan of action to change what we're seeing today?
Yeah, then Richard Reeves, who's a big author, who I can't
Mm,
remember the name of his book right now, but he went on a big tour like a year or two ago. He's really put a lot of attention on this. And the most encouraging thing I will say, again, to kind of ring the bell there, is 2 interventions seem to make a massive difference. And you named one of them already, which is literally just holding boys back a year,
mm,
because we emotionally mature a little bit less. But if you hold them back about a year, the emotional maturity and capacity starts to become on par with women, like in a much more equal way. And then the other one, which, again, used to be bigger thing, but is barely a thing, at least here in the States anymore. It's kind of tragic, is start the day. If you start the day with 1 to 2 hours of vigorous play and physical activity, all the gap starts to wipe away. Boys can then settle in, they can be present for the day, but they gotta move their bodies. And they learn a lot actually through moving their bodies, and it's how they integrate. And that has just been systematically kind of wiped out of education. I was even, right, the crazy thing that came out last fall I saw that was about cursive handwriting, and how it is a completely different brain when your hand actually has to write cursive, how much information you absorb versus just something like typing. And that's pretty much gone from our school system, but it's an example of more embodied learning, right? Actually involving our body in that process. So I don't really know if this is going to change fast enough. I mean, I think there's going to be a confrontation coming just because of AI is basically going to wipe out what most of schools were developed for, which is memorizing facts, which is worthless now. Now it's, the new currency I think we're going to move towards is, part of kind of, I think, what brought us together here of, can you understand your body, your emotional reactions? Can you stay focused on the things you want to be focused on in your life without getting distracted, without getting reactive? Can you lead a conversation with someone where you need to share something or manage a relationship? These are going to be the new currency, I think, of our leadership moving forward. And whatever school systems figure that out sooner than later, I think are going to be well ahead of the curve. I mean, I get so many guys who come to me and are like, why didn't they teach any of this stuff in school? Just basic stuff about how to handle our nervous systems and connect in relationship, right?
mm. What are some of the other struggles men are facing in the world that you think society is still ignoring?
Yeah. I mean, I think the changing nature of even a man's role is a big one, right? Because back in the day, there was a kind of contract that as long as we're providing financial stability of some kind, we're doing our part. And that has basically fallen out completely in the last decades. And there's so much more being asked of us as men, but while we're being asked for it, we're not given the training to meet it, meaning to actually be an available, attuned parent or father, to know how to lead emotionally in a relationship. These are things we are just not taught as guys at all. How to even create connection with other men, right? We're not taught how to do this. And then we wonder why we're feeling so lonely all the time. So I think the skill gap, not so much in terms of just like job training, but of how to be relational in the current day is a big part of it. And the challenge a lot of men that come to me have these days is the woman I'm with makes more money than me. She doesn't need me to take care of her financially. So what's my role? And answering that question is a big part of why I have a job in a lot of ways, and what I try to train men on, and some of the gifts of, male presence and masculine presence that we can really cultivate that people just don't talk about. That's a really big one. The root of so many addictions, I think, is a big one, that they have to do with trauma and emotional regulation problems. And it's not that, you know, um, it's rarely the addiction that's the problem. It's the thing is trying to solve the problem, as Gabor Mate says, this one of the famous therapists. And men get a lot of, I think, flack for that. And again, it's just not proper understanding, and just the very real reality that a lot of guys they want to make friendships and they don't even know how these days. COVID, work from home, changing cultures. Like, part of the challenge, I think, for men right now is you could live pretty successfully without ever leaving your house. Right? In developed nations, you can just order the food, have it shipped. You can have Amazon shipped. You can be doing your work online. And there actually aren't a lot of opportunities to create connection unless you know how to go out there and do it. And men, I think this is what a lot of women don't understand, is because of how we're cultured, we're a little more susceptible to these changes in society where, we used to have elk lodges and places to gather as men. And a lot of that's just gone. And the women I know, including my wife, she works with women, they are a little bit better at just staying relational, even if they haven't seen anyone. It's like, oh yeah, I chatted with, we're sending texts back and forth all day. I'm aware of what my friends are doing. We connect. Where a lot of guys, it's like out of sight, out of mind. Yeah, my best friend from college, I love him so much, and I haven't talked to him in 2 years. Right? It's just like, he's not here, so he's not here. And that's I think a big part of this crisis that isn't talked about, along with, just what does it even mean to be a successful man these days?
Yeah.
So many of the jobs and industries are changing, and a lot of guys, I think, are just left like, how do I win? Like, I don't even know how to win in this environment, so fuck it, I'm out. And they just kind of eject.
Yeah.
And that's where I think it's really tragic, because there's so many, every man I know wants to be of service. He wants to give. He wants to support others. And when a man doesn't know how to do that and isn't connected to his purpose in that sense, I think this is something a lot of women don't understand. It is like the deepest pain for a man of, I don't know how to bring my gifts forward in this world. And I feel like I'm wasting my life. And it gets so intense, guys will check out with drugs, with alcohol, and yes, with suicide.
Yes. I wonder too, Jason, if the feminist movement has also contributed to the alarming mental health crisis, not just in men, but also women. Now, I need to tread carefully with this, because I'm not knocking any of the gains that women have made in the last 50 years. And I think feminism was an important movement and a right that women should have always had. But it has created a bit of a problem for men in what their purpose is, what their role is in society. And I wonder too, Jason, if a lot of men now, because women are doing exceptionally well, they're dominating in education, they're dominating in the workforce, and now men are in a position, okay, well, women are making their own, which is fantastic. What's my place in the role? What's my purpose now? And I speak to a lot of men too. They do want families, they do want kids. And I still think there is a problem with this gender divide where women, I guess, are chasing careers, which is fantastic. men are also trying to make money too, because they know if they can't make money, a lot of women too want a man to be on par with them making the same amount or if not more. The problem that you have now is if men can't rise up to the education, there's just not enough of these men to go around. So you get a lot of these women chasing after the top percentile of men. That also leaves a lot of men below very bitter, very resentful, and then will just say, well, fuck this. I'm just going to retreat to porn and video games. So I wonder too, Jason, do you think that the feminist movement has also impacted the way we handle relationships in this day and age?
Yeah, I think this is one of the big challenges is that both men and women are being asked to grow and evolve. And so the timing is part of what's challenging right now, in that women are a little ahead, in that they weren't ahead for a long time, but then feminism, the women's lib movement kind of exploded, right, in the 50s and 60s, and women were allowed to be liberated from their biology. I can be more than a mother. I can go out, I can have a bank account, I can vote, I can have a job, I can have a purpose. All, like you said, fantastic gains. This is all plus. The challenge is the male equivalent has been a little behind. And what we're seeing, the challenge for a lot of men right now, is we're actually, these are reductionist terms, but they're useful, right? Women were allowed to develop their inner masculine. I can have agency, I can execute, I can lead things, I can be independent, I can be my own person. And the men's movement, the first real blips of it were kind of in the 20s with Robert Bly and the the 90s mythopoetic movement, but it really was pretty far behind. And we're just seeing in the last decade, I would see this movement of, oh, hey, we have to grow too. And part of our growth is interior growth, what we would kind of call our more feminine of, oh, wait, I'm allowed to have feelings. I'm allowed to have a body. I'm allowed to be in pain. I'm allowed to like art, like just simple things, right? Instead of just being a machine. And now the challenge is, though, we've both kind of grown into opposite directions. So you have a lot of women who are outmanning men and a lot of men who are outwomening women in some sense. And then they get together and they're like, hey, you're a really cool person and I like you, but I do not want to be in an intimate relationship with you. And nobody's happy. And so a lot of the work, that's emerged over the last 5 years in particular is what does it mean to grow back into what we call polarity? How do we play with masculine and feminine energy in a more developed way? That's not, you have to be this way, but I can be this way in order to offer something to my partner. And this is a real gift I train men on of, yeah, let's say you have a boss babe woman who's out there crushing it, leading a company all day. For many of them, not all of them, but many of them, they will hit a point where the last thing they want to do is come home and run the house and make the decisions and lead the relationship. They actually want a man who can step forward and be like, here's the plan for tonight. You're taking a bath. I've got the car. Babysitter's coming. Here we go. Right? Even if he doesn't make more money than her. And these are skills that we're having to train in that part of the new currency, I would argue, is it's actually fluidity. It's the capacity for both men and women to step into both of these energies in the appropriate situation, but know how to step out of them for the sake of intimate relationship. So
Yes.
I can step into the leadership, my partner, when she wants to, not because she has to, can let go and follow my leadership. And that is often her deepest bliss, even though all day long she's leading people, kicking ass, running a company, right? She's on top of it. And that's part of what we're being asked to do as men, and that we just have not had the training to do. And that, talking about just the changing roles. I mean, it was something crazy like, let's see if I can find this. In 1982, almost half of fathers had never changed a diaper. By 2000, it dropped to 3%. So men were getting more involved in the home and in the child rearing. And that is something that has changed, right? Where some men do want to be. I know guys who are like, yeah, I worked in a career for 10 years and I love being a stay-at-home dad. I love that my wife's out working. Again, it's not that one's better or worse, but we have to be able to consciously play these roles and then know how to unplay them for the sake of our relationship. And so there have been a lot of challenges, and men are asked to be more now, to be
Yeah.
able to be in the directive, to be able to lead, and to be attuned, to be emotional, to spend time with their kids, to know how to lead their woman, to know how to help their woman soften in heterosexual relationships, right? And that's the thing that just nobody trained us in, right? All the movies teach us, oh, you meet your partner and then you live happily ever after. And it's like, no wonder why the divorce rate's through the roof, right? Because relationship is hard work. It is hard work. You got to grow. You got to look at yourself. You got to be relentlessly examining yourself and your patterns and your history. And so far, not all men have been up to that. But what I will say is, again, to kind of be a voice of encouragement, there's that subset of men who are like the super successful, like you said, that are honestly just crushing it online, feel like they have to never settle down because they can basically have as many women as they want. And, it's another one of those crazy stats that it's something like 90% of women, as soon as they get on a dating app, they set the height filter to 6 feet tall minimum.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
something like barely 9% of men are 6 feet tall or over. So right there, huge population of men just totally wiped out. And that's made it very challenging for men. But what I can say is encouraging is for the men that are stepping into what I call doing our inner work. So taking responsibility for our pain, learning our childhood wounding, learning how to regulate our nervous systems to become emotionally vulnerable, and how to generate polarity and lead in relationship, what women will often call a so-called conscious man. And we see this particularly right around kind of 35 to 40. There's a major shift where suddenly it's all these women standing around saying, where are all the good conscious men that actually want to be in relationship, that actually will stay with me and get into the hard stuff and start a family or whatever that might be? And for the men that do that work, sky's the limit. I will tell you, suddenly, if you're a conscious man who is self-examining himself and is willing to step into that kind of new relationship, they are so rare. There are so few men who are willing to do that inner work, to go to therapy, to go to coaching, to get these relational skills. But when they do, you can kind of suddenly, as I tell my guys, it's like, no, you're actually the scarce thing, because there's so many more. You go to any relationship workshop, right? About intimacy, about connection, about healthy relationships. It's almost always mostly women.
Yeah.
Very few men there, right? But if you're the man that goes there, then suddenly you got a room for a woman like, oh my God, you're actually here and you're working on yourself. And it's a very different world in reality for those men. But a lot of men will not step into looking at themselves, like that kind of self-examination and growth, until their life is just extraordinarily painful.
Yeah. I think too, Jason, women as well very much look at a man on his ability to be able to garner resources, and for good reason too. Like if we're going to have men and women get together and the possibility of having a kid, this day and age is extremely expensive. Like the housing crisis over here in Australia, Jason, is fucking ridiculous. Homes are selling, average homes are selling for $1 million. Like how the fuck is the younger generation going to be able to afford a home? In the 1950s, you could buy a home, you could have 2 kids, you could probably travel, you could do a lot. But because now women are in the workforce too, they have to double the taxes. Taxes become higher. Government will generally want more money. And now both parents are having to work to be able to support a family. And I do think too, there is this problem that I think is happening right now where because women are doing exceptionally well, which is fantastic, they do heavily rely on a man's ability to be able to garner resources in the future. And the problem is, as women climb up through their own hierarchy and competence, they further shorten down the pool of eligible men. The majority of women, I think, are chasing the
Mhm.
top percentile of men. These guys are commitment averse. They have a wealth of options. Why would they
Yeah.
settle for one woman for the rest of time? It's kind of like the child with the ice cream. You know, he can't,
Yeah, yeah,
he's
yeah.
got so many choices of flavor of what he wants, he can't decide. And I also don't think it's good for those guys either. So no one's fucking happy. And I think that women especially have a very high demand on men's ability to be able to acquire resources in the future. Is there a way that we can raise men up without putting the brakes on women?
Yeah, what comes to mind is one of the big shifts that, again, I actually think something like a men's group is incredibly value for. And it's a bit of a redefinition of resources. And one way to term that is social capital. So, social capital means what kind of network am I plugged into, right? They say it takes a village to raise a kid. And this is one of the many areas so many men are just devastated around, that they don't have any male friends. So a woman meets them. What? Wait, you don't have any men around you? What happens if you get sick or lose a job? That's all on me. That's scary. That's terrifying, right? But social capital is, okay, maybe I don't make the most money, but I have an incredibly robust network. I've invested in social relationships that pay me dividends in terms of social capital, who I have access to, people that can help me, people that can help me find work, people that can mentor me, these types of different things. And that is actually an incredibly important thing. A lot of women, they don't even know they're looking for that, because they think of it as resource in terms of what's his job and how much money does he have in the bank. But when you start to explain it to them, and I've talked to my wife about this, and she's seen it in many of her clients, one of the first things, if my wife was on here, she would say that really had her pay attention to me was when she met the men I surrounded myself with. She met the men that were closest to me in my life and was like, wow, these are fucking solid guys. He is surrounded by solid, trustable men. So if I build a relationship with him, I'm not just in relationship with him. Our relationship is being held in this wider community that can support us, can support our kids. And it has played out very much in that way. And that's one of the ways that's a little counterintuitive for guys. But I tell guys, if they, are getting divorced or they're having a hard time finding their partnership, I say, you getting into something like a men's group and investing in other high quality men who are going to invest back in you, that is an investment in your family and your future partner. And they're like, what? But it plays out that way, because then suddenly, let's say you go out on a date, you meet a woman, you have a whole life and network to invite that woman into. She can feel you're part
Mm.
of something that is robust and durable and resilient in case of hard times. Oh my God, we need a babysitter. So-and-so just passed away and we got to go. Like, these things really play out in a massive way. And so it doesn't necessarily solve the financial thing, but even in that, what I've seen is that's how guys get killer jobs. They got men who are on the lookout for them, who are like, oh, hey, I just heard about this position at my company. Boom. You never would have gotten
Yeah.
in there without that personal connection. And without that, it's basically, this is what's devastating for men right now, is the job market is kind of like the dating thing, where it's all done online now. Your application is one of a billion. AI's looking at it these days, and there's no humanity there, and you're kind of screwed. That's the honest truth. I know guys who have been on 100 first dates or have applied to 1,500 jobs and never even heard something back. But through the social capital, you have very different type of access in that. Particularly if you grow your way into a community of men like that, it's actually extraordinarily attractive for a partner, because there's a sense of he's being held. He is being held in his life by something more than just him. And that's very confronting for a lot of men, who we tend to live by this belief, right? Oh, I'm just going to be tough. I'll grind through anything. And then lo and behold, this is a kind of rude wake-up call I say to all men who kind of have that tough vulnerability is, for weak men thing, is just the very real truth that I don't care how strong a man you are, like how tough you are, how much you build up your body, there is going to be a day in your life where your body will fail you and you cannot push through, be it illness, old age, accident, you name it. It is coming. It is coming for every man. And it's at that moment you are going to fall back into, what type of social capital have I built up around me? And for a lot of men, they wait till it's too late, till the emergency happens. And then they're in the crisis and they have no one. And so one of the most proactive things you can do as a guy right now is start building those relationships now. Your relationship will get better, you'll make more money, and you'll feel more relaxed in a very turbulent world.
And what do we do about the money situation, Jason? And the problem that a lot of men are having right now, and I'm not knocking all women, I just think some women have delusional standards of what they want in a partner. He's got to be over 6 feet tall. He's got to make over six figures. He's got to have six-pack abs, 6 inches downstairs, six horsepower, whatever the fuck their standards are. And I think also social media might have something to do with it as well. Social media might have
100%.
something to do with it, to blame for the unbelievable standards that people have. And most women that I speak to do want family, they want children, but there is a side of women, I think, too, that are, I guess, because they're sort of fixated on someone's income, they tend to have these delusional standards. And I do worry as well that women also shoot themselves in the foot because there's just not enough of these men to go around. And I mean, like I heard 2 girls when they came to Australia slept with Chris Brown, the singer. That never would have happened 20 years ago. So I think also social media has also ruined dating. I think dating apps have been absolutely atrocious for men and women. I think also men just could not be fucked. Women can't be fucked either. So what can we do to kind of get men and women back together? And also, how can we help them be happy with the transaction? Because everything in life is a transaction. It doesn't matter if it's a business relationship, a friendship, a romantic relationship. Everything in life is a transaction. But how can we get men and women to be happy with the transaction?
Yeah, I think and we're just at the early stages. And obviously, I have a pretty distorted view because I'm deep in this world. So this is mostly who I work with, which is not necessarily everyone out there. But what I can say is I've seen a lot of women who have gone that route, and he does have the money, and they discover, oh my God, he is a miserable person to be around because he has no control over his anger. He's not at all present with me. He doesn't treat me well. And they have a journey to go on. Let's just say some women do, to the reality of, do I want the Disney prince fantasy, or do I want the man who's actually here and available for real connection? And I see this on both sides, honestly, that everyone says they want that, but when they're actually confronted with it, a lot of people are scared. Wow, they're actually here. They actually want to build something with me. And then all this stuff kicks in of, oh, well, I don't know, nitpicky. And this is the social media and the dating thing, that suddenly we can find just the smallest thing. Oh, she doesn't like this one thing, or he looks this way. And suddenly a whole person's eradicated for. And what we're being asked to do is to start to go deeper than that. In what I'm just starting to see, at least here in the States, and only in the big cities, honestly, is there is a move because of the dating fatigue, just at least in the singles world, to connection events. So what we do, it's not like a speed dating, hi, how are you? It's, we're going to get in a room and people are going to lead us through practices that actually get us to be real with each other. And we're going to learn about what it's like to be with each other when it's uncomfortable. And some of the most successful relationships I'm seeing are coming out of that because they're not surface level. There's a hunger for depth. I do see starting to emerge that the market is just starting to address, at least here in the States. It's very early though. But it is just the honest truth that I think part of what we're having to redefine as a society is what is a good relationship. Most of the men I work with did not have that modeled for them, right? Their parents either just became roommates or fought all the time, or maybe loved each other, but definitely weren't having sex. And they just never really had it modeled for them. What does a healthy relationship actually look like over 20, 30, 40 years? And so we're having to discover that. And that's part of the challenge. And what I see more and more couples stepping into is it's not so much how much money do they make. It's not so much how do they look. It's not so much the status. It's, can this person, I know this is crazy, communicate with me? And when we have a rupture, are they open to trying to repair? This sounds so simple, but anyone doing this is like in Jedi territory for relationships right now. And that starts to see actually the most important thing. And this was part of what had me really take notice of my wife was the first night we went out, we had massive friction with each other. We went really deep and we talked about what we wanted, where we were coming from, and there was massive misalignment. I'm talking like, whoa. And she wanted to storm off and leave. And I was like, no, actually, I want you to stay. Like, I want you to stay. I want to talk about this. And it was the first time I had experienced a partner who every time I leaned in, even when it was uncomfortable, she at least tried to lean back. Like, ooh, I'm mad right now, or I don't like this. I don't know how to do this. And through that, I learned, wow, okay, so conflict isn't a problem with her. We can work it. And to me, that was way more valuable than any other experience I had in relationship. And so it's part of what I'm starting to teach men is the willingness to work on the relationship. If you're a guy that champions that, you can win a lot of women over. And when I say champion that, it also means you have to have the capacity to actually get present with her. If you're stuck in your head wondering, what do I need to say or do to get her in bed or to get her not to be mad at me, or I'm thinking about my work problem, she is not going to clock you. I can tell you that. But if you're a man that knows how to bring presence to the moment, she will feel it. And that is one of the skill sets that a lot of men don't know how to do that you can start to work on right now, independent of all that. And that luckily I have found cuts through a lot of the noise. When a woman feels, holy shit, this guy is actually here listening to me. I mean, maybe this is another way to frame it. I know I'm kind of going off here, but if you can become a man who can give a woman the experience of being heard and listened to, she won't give a shit how much money you make. Trust me. She's like, as long as you have your basic survival needs met, she'll be like, wow, I can actually express myself and you'll listen and not try to fix me. That is a rare thing in the world. And it blows the mind of so many women when a guy can actually do it. And they're like, wow, I remember that interaction. That's a guy I want to see again because I felt different in my body than I've ever felt with another man before. And that cuts through so many of these things. So there are very real challenges, but for men who are up for the task, we really can educate ourselves. And in doing so, in doing this deep inner work, this is the other thing I teach my guys, who we attract and who we're attracted to changes. Because once we start doing the tough inner work of taking responsibility for our upbringing, our pain, our relational patterns, our shadows, what we start to notice is who else is doing that and who isn't. And very quickly it's, I don't want to be with someone who's never even asked themselves, what did I learn being a kid, right? Or, hey, do you ever realize, maybe you're contributing to the type of men you meet or what, But the good news is, as we step into that space, we tend to step into a space that attracts a different kind of woman who's not looking just for the surface stuff, who is looking for what's underneath the surface.
Yeah. It's interesting too, Jason. One of the things that I've learnt about how men and women differ is men tend to want to fix problems, whereas women just want to be heard and seen. And past relationships and experiences that I've encountered too, I'm already problem solving because it's our love language. Men want to fix things. That's our love language. We have a partner here that's in pain, and we want to get to the root cause and fix the problem. Whereas a lot of women don't want you to do that. They just want you to listen to them. But how can we reframe that part of what men can do to sit as opposed to fix the problem? Because this is where a lot of dudes have big issues because they go into problem solving mode. Now, this works great for men, and I think this is why therapy isn't really working so much for men, is because it's not getting to the root problem. I think, and this is a good point by Chris Williamson, podcaster. He said male depression gets treated like female depression. Men want to feel capable. They want to feel powerful. They want to feel needed. It's that saying, give a man a purpose and the ability to achieve it, and he will crawl over broken glass with a smile. So I do wonder as well, Jason, what can we do to try and educate both men and women on how to better problem solve in their relationships? What do you think is a good way to go about it? Because women do want to feel heard and seen. Men go into problem solving, and this is where it gets all messed up.
Yeah, I this is one of the first pieces I wrote about a number of years ago. And it's just a pause before the fix. And so I say it's feel her before you fix her. So the very first thing to do is to become present and listen and actually feel what's going on underneath the words for her. And then when you can reflect that emotionally, she will feel seen and gotten. And oftentimes, that's the only fix you need to do. Because she's like, oh, I feel better now. I totally know what I need to do. She can handle it, right? This is the wild thing. They think, often us guys think they want our rational strategy when they actually often have their own rational strategy. But first, they just want to feel emotionally met and seen. Now, the key is sometimes we'll meet them and have them felt seen. And then if they don't know what to do, but you've met them in that, then they'll fucking ask. Then they'll be like, and what do you think I should do? And then when you come in with the fixer, it's fantastic because they're ready for it. They're open for it. They don't feel like you steamroll past the emotion. The challenge a lot of times in this dynamic from the feminine side is, oh, the experience is he's trying to fix me because he doesn't like how I'm feeling right now.
Yep.
I'm pissy or I'm depressed. I'm not bubbly and champagne-y and feminine. So he wants me to be different than I am right now. And he's trying to change how I feel. And nothing will drive a woman crazier than if she thinks you're trying to change how she feels.
Yep.
So our work as men is to actually not initially. It's just to meet them fully in the energy. I'm here with you. Sounds like you're really fucking pissed. Sounds like you're really pissed at me, right? And you just meet them in that and you rest in that. And sometimes that is enough. And if it's not, once they're met in that, they'll often be way more open to the kind of rational problem solving. So for us men, it's not that we have to stop doing that, but there's just a step I teach in between, first slowing down and getting attuned to the partner. And then we can kind of bring forward with that if they want it. And sometimes they don't even need to. And it blows so many men's minds when I work with them on this. And they're like, wait, literally all I had to do was listen to her? And they start to have the experience. And it's like, yeah, they listen for like 2 or 3 minutes. She kind of, and then she just kind of puts herself back together. And she's like, oh no, I'm great now. And he's like, what?
Yeah.
I've been trying to like do all this stuff all these years and it just made it worse. And all I had to do was just sit there and listen and reflect a little bit. And they're like, yeah, and it works. So there's some training, for us men, and there's just compassion also from women in understanding that, yeah, when we try to fix, it is often coming from the place of us that wants to serve the people we care about. We do want to reduce suffering. We do want to be useful. And that if we're trying to, fix, it's not because we don't think you can do it. It's because we want to help. We feel
Yeah.
alive when we're helping and supporting. So there's compassion that can also come from there, from women as well, to just understand, okay, hey, you're coming a little strong right now. I don't actually need you to problem solve this or coach me, but I really appreciate that, you want to help. I would love it if you just listen to me right now, right? Instead of attacking him or tearing him down for what he's doing, but, appreciating. I think that's one gift, women can really give to men is appreciation for even when we can't do something, even if we're trying to lead and we're leading poorly, even if she gave us some feedback and we're trying, but we're really messing it up, most men will keep going if you just give them a little bit of appreciation. If you just acknowledge the effort. Like, hey, I know it's a little harsh on you there, but I do just want to say I really appreciate you trying, because I told you that thing last week and I can feel you tried, and I really want to acknowledge your effort. For a lot of guys, they hear that, they're like, great, okay, I can keep going. But when they're not given that and they feel like they keep trying and it's always nitpicked or criticized or never enough, that's when men really shut down. So that's one very generous thing feminine partners can do for men, is just acknowledge and give them appreciation for their effort.
Mm-hmm. And I know people probably get sick and tired of me saying this, but I think this is another huge problem in relationships is some women become very repulsed if a man shows emotions, whether he sheds a tear, they cry. If he's acting like a whingy, whiny baby, that's a different story. But if it's serious, there's a death in the family, he has a friend that, passed away, a dog dies, a pet, and that man sheds a tear. How do most women handle that situation when they see a man cry? Because maybe they didn't see their father cry. They weren't really brought up in a healthy dynamic where they got to see both the father and the mother express their emotions. And I always go back and revert back to World War I and World War II. How would of the women back in those times supported their men? A lot of these men would have woken up with PTSD and night terrors, maybe crying and screaming in their sleep. And I wonder how the women back in those days would have been able to help and accommodate their men. So the question I have for you, Jason, is what needs to be done, and how can women better support men without shaming them for showing vulnerability?
Yeah, this is such a great question because it's a very real lived experience a number of men I've worked with have had, in that, right, their partner tells them for months or years, I want to feel you more. I can't feel you. I want you to be more vulnerable. Then they step into it and then it freaks their partner out. And they're like, I don't like that at all. Like, I'm totally scared. Da, da, da. And then there's a double wound there. There's, I did do it. And then you kind of hurt me for it. So I'm definitely not going to do it again. That happens. And there is a part for women to take some responsibility around how they approach a man and his vulnerability. And, I'm not particularly qualified to teach that because I don't work with women. But again, it's just acknowledging that, hey, us men are not invulnerable, period. Right? We have up days, we have down days. Sometimes we can't keep it together. And sometimes we're scared. Sometimes we're in grief. Sometimes we're in fear. And we don't need you to often fix it, but we just need you to acknowledge it and understand our pain. Now, that said, where we can really get ahead of the curve as men, and this ties right back into where you and I started with men's groups, and this is a very real functional thing. Part of the challenge so many modern relationships have is men don't cultivate strong enough relationships with other men. And we live in a culture of don't ever share what's going on inside with the buddies you do have. So I hear this story all the time. Oh, actually, I went out. I got my buddies. We see each other every Saturday at the bar. But I come home and I feel terribly alone because none of them know my wife's about to leave me, because we don't talk about that kind of stuff at the bar, right? We talk about the sports. So I'm around men, but we're not talking about what's going on underneath. So one of the things we can do for men, and one of the pressures that puts on a lot of guys, is then the only place they do sometimes feel safe to be emotional is with their intimate partner. The problem with that is if that's the only person, that puts an incredible amount of pressure on that relationship, because now they're your lover, your best friend, your spouse, your co-parent, and your therapist, and kind of your mother. And if there are any two energies that are opposing, it's mother and lover. She doesn't want to be both. If she's feels like she's having to mother you, you are not going to get the lover out of her. So how do we handle this as men? And what I've seen is the very same share of vulnerability with a woman will be experienced completely differently with that one factor we talked about. What kind of men are holding me? So if I come to my wife and I'm like, oh my God, they're going to lay me off next week. We don't have any money. I don't know what to do. I'm in a panic, right? And I have no one around me. She's going to be like, oh shit. No, like I can't handle this, right? This is scaring me. Like, what are you going to do? Da, da, da. But if I come to her and I'm like, I'm getting laid off. I'm scared. I brought it to my men. They're helping me figure out a plan. And I just wanted to let you know what's going on. She's going to feel it very differently. She's going to feel, oh, I'm not the only one holding this man in his pain. He's being held by others. And paradoxically, she's often much more spontaneous than with wanting to serve and help and devoted to our healing, when she can feel she doesn't have to hold it all. You know, I don't quite know how old you are, but when I was growing up, we had Christmas lights, strings of Christmas lights. I always use this analogy of back in the day that you'd have like a long row of lights and you'd hang them up, that if one bulb was out, the whole string wouldn't work. And this is how a lot of men approach relationship. Their intimate relationship is their everything. It's their place for all of it. And it puts a lot of pressure on it, because then if that's not working, their life is terrible. Getting into something like a men's group where I bring my messy, vulnerable, emotional self to my men who help me get clear about what I'm feeling, what I'm needing, and what my action is. I then bring that clarity back to my partner, and it's part of a bigger system, and she will experience it completely differently. And, you know, one last tip I'll just say, one of my teachers taught me, the other thing you can do to kind of keep that masculine frame while sharing something vulnerable, cut to the point. If you can say it in 2 sentences or less, it'll be very deep. So there was a time when I first became a coach with my wife, wasn't so intelligent. I quit all my jobs. It's like, I'm going to do this full time. I'm just going to go for it. Burn the bridges. Yeah. Turns out it was a disaster. I got into all kinds of debt. It was hard. It was hard to build a business. But a year in, she was freaked out because I was going deeper and deeper into debt. She wanted to have kids. She was very concerned. And my stress response, like a lot of men, if I'm stressed, I go quiet and I withdraw. So she's getting freaked out. What's going on? I can't feel you. You've disappeared. And, you know, we sit down to have a conversation one day, and I had done this very thing where I had just spent time with my men. And she's like, you know, what's going on? What's your plan? Like, terrified. I was like, okay, this is the moment, right? I got to bring it. I can't hide. And I got to be very clear. And I just said, yeah, I'm at a place right now in life where it feels like all I'm doing is losing, and I want to be winning, and it's really painful. And I'm working really hard with my guys to make a plan right now. So all I said, her whole nervous system went, she completely relaxed because she knew where I was at. I wasn't hiding it. She felt closer to me, and I was wrapped in community, right? I had guys that were tracking me, and she trusted that. So her nervous system got to feel into, oh, it's not that he's mad at me or about to leave me. It's, yeah, he's having a tough time and he's figuring it out. But it was the brevity can sometimes be very useful for us guys. It's just bottom line it, get to the depth, 2 or 3 sentences.
Yeah, it's interesting, Jason. I watched a movie a long time ago. It's called Legends of the Fall. It has Brad Pitt in it, and there's a scene where he's mourning over the death of his brother, and he's crying. And I think the actress's name is Julia Ramon. She comes up and she notices he's crying. He turns away. And then there's a part in the scene where she comforts him, she holds him, and then he's able to cry. Now, this is where a lot of women, I guess, differ as when is acceptable for a man to cry, when isn't it acceptable for a man to cry. Basically feels like men have to earn the right to express their emotions. And the reason why Brad Pitt can cry is because he's fucking Brad Pitt. He's built his value up. He's earned some manly points. So I wonder how women can learn on creating safe spaces for men if they're able to expressively and honestly maybe cry. So what can women learn about creating a safe space? Because a lot of dudes do worry about it being weaponized and used against them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the double-edged sword. Like, how do women approach this, and how do men approach this?
Yeah, I mean, women have to learn the same thing we were just talking about of what it means to hold space. I don't have to fix him. I just have to be present with him and validate his experience and be here with him. Now, what often makes that infinitely more tolerable for the feminine is if there's a container around it. So if I come and I say, hey, I'm feeling a lot right now. Would you mind holding me for 10 minutes? I'm serious, like putting a time limit on it completely changes the energetic of it. It's like, yeah, I can step into that for 10 minutes, totally. And it really, in some sense, relaxes the partner because they realize I don't have to be in this holding space forever. Now, again, you might need more than 10 minutes to grieve as a man, for sure. But again, my argument would be that interaction is going to go a lot different if you went and you grieved with your men first.
Mm.
You go. I mean, I've literally had men hold me as I wail in tears from loss, from challenges, from physical stuff. And what it means is I can come back with access and rawness in my heart. And, kind of like a pulverized piece of meat, I'm tenderized, but I'm here. Like I'm in myself, and that's, again, I focus more on men, so I can speak a little bit more towards that. Our work is to learn to have the emotion move through us, but not be overtaken by the emotion. Right? And this is something a lot of men don't know how to do, whether it's with grief, whether it's fear, and particularly with anger. And there's nothing that feels more dangerous to the feminine than when she walks up to her man and she's like, "Are you mad?" "No, I'm not mad." And she's like, "Holy shit, he is about to rip someone's head off and he doesn't even know it. Red flag, I'm out of here. If he's not aware he's mad, I'm not safe." It's very different than a man who's like, "Yeah, my shoulders are on fire. I am raging. I'm furious right now. I feel so much anger inside myself." Second, you can speak that as a man, you are infinitely safer because the anger is an object in your awareness. It has not overtaken you. And the more we can do that with all of our emotional content, the easier it is for the feminine to stay present with us and be with us in that. So it's the sense, oh, I can be in the emotion, but I'm not collapsed and overtaken with it. And the truth as a man is sometimes that is going to happen. My prescription is go do that with your men. Go do that with your men, and then you can come back and be with your woman in a different way, and she will feel it.
Mm. Is it okay for a man to cry in front of his partner?
Yes, absolutely. 100%. Most men who would say no to that, this is just my lived experience, having worked with a lot of men and helped them move into these spaces. Most men who judge tears are afraid of them. They're afraid if I ever go there, I feel like it'll take me. Like I'll never come back from that. It'll never end. I'll lose myself. And so it's actually fear that keeps them from there. And one of the many reasons, again, rites of passage, men's work can be so transformational for men is the first time they've had the experience of sitting in presence with another man who drops fully into his heartache, his grief, his rage, his fear, but doesn't lose himself, is still here. Is still here. Like, I feel this guy. He's solid. And man, he is just grieving like in a way I've never seen. But I still feel him. He's not collapsed. He's not a victim. He's not gone out of his body. He's like here. That transmission is almost immediate to men where they're like, I didn't even fucking know that was possible. No one showed me. I actually trust that man more now. That was so brave that he actually grieved about the death of his father or the cancer diagnosis he's in right now. And he comes out of it with more space and agency. And so it's an experiential thing that I think is just the challenge, because so few men have been around regulated men who have access to their emotions that can stay not collapsed in shame, but also not the opposite, the posture of I'm fine, right? Like that's where most men play. Posture, collapse. Posture, collapse. The work is to be right in the middle. My heart hurts. And I'm here. Right? And when men feel that, they trust it, actually. Women trust that quite a bit more, because when they can feel a man can't be knocked over by his emotions, guess what? They're like, oh shit, this guy can hold me in mine. He's not afraid of his grief. He's not afraid of his anger. He's not afraid of his fear. Turns out one of the best ways we can learn to hold that space for the feminine is when we learn to hold it for ourselves. Of, oh yeah, I'm not afraid of my grief. I'm not afraid of my fear. Yeah, sometimes I get waves and it comes and I know how to stay present through all of it.
Yeah.
If you can bring that capacity to the feminine of whatever you got, I'm right here. Women will devote themselves to that man. I've seen it. I've experienced it. I'm married to that woman.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, and I do think too, one of the greatest compliments you can ever give a woman is vulnerability, because she gets to see a side of you you may not show anybody else. And I just think too, it comes down to emotional maturity. But there are some very good women out there that will hold space for a man to show emotion, even cry. And it's just that part where, is it safe? That's the problem that a lot of men have, because I've had relationships. I've been in relationships, and I had a partner at the time, and I chose to walk away from the relationship because of other circumstances. But she was an amazing woman. I actually cried in front of her, and she loved me more for it. And some women find it incredibly attractive, very, very attractive if a man actually cries in front of them. But there are unfortunately some women out there that won't do that. And a lot of dudes that I've heard online have said they cried in front of their girlfriend or they cried in front of their wife. They never looked at me the same ever again. So this is the double-edged sword that a lot of men face.
Yeah, well, this is where the choice for us men becomes, what kind of partner do I want to be with? And so in the work I teach, if you want to be with a woman who's not afraid of your tears, how you find out is you bring your tears. And you bring them sooner than later to find out, is she really down to be with all of me? And if she's not the right fit. And just like there's shallow men, guess what? There are shallow women who do just want the bravado, the agency, the car, the abs. They're out there. The question for men is that the kind of woman I want? And so if she can't hold space for me, that's incredibly valuable feedback for you as a man as to whether or not you want to pursue this woman as your life partner. It's not a reflection of you. It's a reflection of often of her and her capacity to stay present in vulnerability or see fragility or whatever that might be. And so, I'm definitely of the ilk. The clearer you get about what you want, the easier it's going to be to magnetize that partner. And again, the beauty in the work I teach men is if you go on this path of internal development, personal growth, transformation, healing, wholeness, really just the practice of how do I become a more whole human being, you tend to start going to events, hanging out in communities and meeting women who are on the same path and value that kind of thing more than the other things. And I can tell you, obviously, it's not all women, but like my wife, she gets horny as fuck when I'm vulnerable. She loves feeling me, right?
That's amazing.
Like it opens her whole body. That again, if I was doing that all day long,
Mm.
no, that's not the thing. I know how to lead her. I know to be handled in myself. I've got amazing men around me. So when I do bring that forward, she loves it because she can feel, oh
Mm.
my God, he's a human being. And yeah, it is a special thing because I don't go through the world showing that everywhere, right? So for her, it gets, when she feels me in my heart and in my body, guess what? Brings her into her heart and her body. And that's the place of, deepest arousal for all of
Yeah.
us.
Yeah. Yeah, I can remember, a previous relationship I had, Jason. Uh, the girl that I was seeing at the time, she jumped on me when I shed a tear watching The Green Mile. There's a scene in The Green Mile, it's a fucking
Yeah.
great movie.
Yeah.
There's a scene and spoiler alert, but there's a scene at the end where the actor Michael Clarke Duncan is faced with execution, and obviously he's been wrongfully convicted, but yeah, anyways, the scene is so powerful. There's emotions flying. Tom Hanks is crying. The other actors are crying. And fuck, man, I shed a tear. And I can just remember
Yeah.
at the time, yeah, my girlfriend at the time, she jumped on me. So there are good
Yeah.
women out
Totally.
there that will hold space.
Absolutely. And, for certain women, that's going to open their hearts, which then helps them open their bodies, literally.
Mm.
And for certain women, what that's indicative of is you have an emotional body that you're attuned to and not afraid of. And again, this isn't the MO of all women. For any women that are considering a family, they want to know a father can be present emotionally for their children and attune to them. And if a man can't attune to himself and express, guess what he's not going to have any room for in the house? His kids to do that. And so this is part of the deep work we get to do as men to make space for all of this in
Mm.
ourselves, which then actually becomes leadership because the more we can step into it, I see this time and time again in men's groups. If I step forward into my vulnerability, again, purpose and belonging, the two things groups can do, it's not just for me. I see it every time I run a group. One man steps into, oh my God, I'm a little scared to say this. Here's the thing that happened. Here's what I've never shared with anyone. I've got tears around it. Another man in the group suddenly has the experience. Holy shit, that was brave. Wow, I can't believe he shared that. I've never been around another man who spoke that bravely. Maybe I can share my thing now. And then he shares his thing because the other man created the space and went first. And this
Mm.
is a new type of leadership us men can step into in our families, in our intimate relationships, and with other men, is we go first. The risk is not everyone can hold us in that and meet us in that. That's the honest truth. But the people who can will be grateful that we went first.
Mm. Yeah. And what is the work that you're doing at the moment, Jason? You do a lot of men's retreats. If I read that correctly, you're very involved with men and creating, I guess, men's group where men are able to connect and get together. But can you talk about that? What the work you're involved with doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I said, my mission is I think every man should be in a men's group. So, I lead all
Mm.
kinds of programs and retreats, but they're all oriented around masculine community. And if you're a man and you feel stuck in your life and you're like, how do I change? How do I transform? Get offline with other men in nature, and your life will change,
Yep.
period. Like, do embodiment practice offline with men in nature. Um, Men's groups can become one of the most powerful tools for that. So I lead all kinds of men's groups. Some are actually oriented around dating and relationships, creating marriages or finding our partner. Some are around deep emotional healing work, what I call shadow work. My God, I keep doing this thing in my life. I don't want to be doing it, but I don't know how to stop. I keep having this fight with my girlfriend, or I keep reaching for the bottle or whatever. Often that's shadow material that we have to do the deep work of uncovering. And I do that with men in groups. I have some just online groups for men. And then I have a couple retreats for a year for men who just want to experience this. And the thing why men's groups are so potent as well is guys just grow faster. There's like a slingshot effect when we're immersed in a community who are all doing the same work, and one guy starts to get a win, other guys start to get wins. It's one of the great joys I've seen of the kind of inspiration and the accelerated learning that really happens in these environments, and the very real bonding that happens, right? There's more and more research coming out that, right, men, we connect hormonally through vasopressin, which is do hard shit together. Now, it used to be hard shit was like building something or going off to war or whatever that might be. In this day and age, you can create that same experience by making that hard work your inner work and facing the parts of ourselves we're scared of or shut down to or numb to as men in community with other men. When we witness each other do that, and when we do that, I mean, it's like friends for life. I see it all the time. It's like strangers walk into a room, they go super deep for a weekend. They come out, they're like, I'm in, I'm like, what do you need? Forever. Like, this is it. We've gone so deep and we've faced so much adversity together. And that's that kind of connection that so many men are longing for. And once they get it, they're like, how the hell did I live without this?
Yeah. You know what's fascinating, Jason, and it's weird, but you mentioned the word vasopressin and how men connect doing difficult things. I'm a martial artist, Jason. I have been doing martial arts for a long time, and one of the arts that I've been doing for the last 15 plus years is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I'm a black belt. And when you're in a room, right, and you're grappling, you're basically playing a game of kill. And what I mean by that is if this is a real situation, a life or death, you died. But at the end of the day, you slap and bump, you grapple with the other person. You're trying to tap them out, whether it be a choke or an arm lock or a leg lock, and then you're friends again. But it is the most realist thing. And it's highly unusual, the fact that we as men, we're in a room where we're putting life on hold. We don't have to worry about life stresses, whether a boss is giving us a hard time or having problems at home with the family or the relationships stagnating. But we're putting life on hold and we're coming together and we're playing a game of kill. And it's an unusual thing when you have finished sparring with somebody. You talk about it. You're like, oh, I left my arm there. You got me in the arm bar. That was awesome. Can you show me what you did? And, yeah, I got the triangle choke on you. And, it's just piecing it all together. It's like a puzzle. But the fact that we're both doing something that's incredibly difficult, where 99% of the population would never step into a fight gym, it's an unusual experience. And that's why I encourage a lot of men to try something difficult, whether it be join a fight gym, because the benefits just outweigh everything in life. It just builds resiliency. It helps with you overcoming obstacles and adversity. You're dealing with the hardest, purest form of adversity right there and then. And it's just very interesting that you mentioned that word vasopressin, because we as men, we connect. And I've some of the kindest, the most benevolent people you would ever meet are in a fight gym. Like, I've got friends of mine that have fought MMA. I've got a friend of mine who's an ex-Special Forces commando. He literally fought overseas. He's seen some horrific shit, but he is one of the kindest people you would ever meet. It's truly remarkable.
It's one of the great gifts of male community and connection, right? The masculine, which again isn't limited to just male bodies, but particularly a lot of male bodies orient towards the masculine, grows through challenge and adversity and constriction and breaking through and finding freedom. And, the depth of even what you're talking about there in the gym, the root of all masculine practice in all lineages going back is, can I learn to become relaxed and alert and present no matter how intense what's going on outside or inside is? Right? That's all the traditional rites of passages, so much of the work, sitting on a cushion. Like, this is the masculine way in some sense. So the more we go into challenge, the more what we're actually practicing is self-mastery of our nervous system and our reaction. And can I stay conscious? Can I stay present, right? If you get knocked off center in your grappling, right? Often what happens is you tense up, probably you didn't need to, right? And you waste a little bit of energy, and the guy, he goes for it. And whoever's more, kind of relaxed, and that tends to be who wins in those kind of instances.
Yeah.
And learning that together as men, it's actually our great joy of like, oh man, you totally got me there, but I learned something. And your tussle, right, is how I grow. And, even in a men's group, how I talk about this is I call it the spinach in the teeth moment. Famous therapist Terry Real calls it carefrontation, but it's when another man loves you enough to call you forward on your bullshit, or point something out you might not want to see or couldn't see before. Of like, hey, every time we grapple, you're actually doing this thing. Are you aware of that? And you're like, what? Yeah, no, you do this thing, and you're going to be better if you can not do this thing. Or, yeah, you've been walking around all day, and did you realize, James, you got spinach in your teeth, man? And you're like, oh, what? Oh, a little bit embarrassed. And why didn't anyone else tell me today? At least you told me. Now I trust you more, because I know you're going to tell me the hard truth I need to be the best version of myself. Tussling, grappling, men's group, reflections, direct feedback. Guys are desperate for that, in my experience. Someone who loves them enough to not let them pull their bullshit. Right?
Yeah.
People
It's
think,
so true.
guys don't want to be accountable, but guys want to be accountable.
Yeah, it is so true. And I read somewhere, if you have a friend that calls you out on your bullshit, he holds you accountable. He cares about you a lot. Yeah. And
Yes,
guys do that,
exactly.
don't they? Yeah.
Yeah, the good ones, right? That's how you know someone's really tracking me. Someone is paying attention to me. And again, tying it back into relationships, that's the thing a woman will feel. He's got men around him like that. So it's not me that's fully responsible for everything with him. He's got guys that'll call him out. And I'll tell you, I'll be honest, man, I've gone to men's group before all charged up because of something that happened with my wife, ready to make my case and have them tell me how, yeah, you're so right and she's so wrong. And I start sharing and they're like, dude, do you hear yourself? Like, do you realize you're just as much a part of that problem as she is? And I'm like, no, I'm not. And they're like, yeah, no, look at this, look at this. And then I'm like, you're right. I have some responsibility here. And so instead of going home and laying into my wife, I get to go home to my wife and say, hey, that nasty interaction we had, I realized I had a part to play in that. And I want to take responsibility for that. And if I come forward like that, guess what? She's way more open to meet me. And that becomes a point of connection, not deeper conflict. And that's the kind of thing that, guys, good men will call, I'm not such a fan of the call out thing, but it's the kind of woo-woo calling forward. It's like, I've got the vision of you. I know who you want to be in life, and I'm going to be your champion of that. And when you're not hitting the mark, I'm going to reflect that to you, not to shame you, but to remind you and support you in being the man you want to be.
Yes. And Jason, where can people find you? You're on social media, but if they want to book in a coaching, I don't know if you offer coaching, if you've got any up and coming men's groups, and where can they find more about that?
Yeah, easiest way to stay up to date with me, if you like what I'm kind of wrapping on here, is you go to evolutionary.men. So it's not .com, but .men. On there, you'll find my podcast where I talk about men's groups kind of ad nauseum. You'll see all my programs, retreats. I have virtual men's groups. I have men's groups that, meet on retreat. I have just weekend retreats. And I absolutely do private coaching. And you don't even have to work with me. If you're like, okay, I hear you, I need to find some male community. How do I find that near me? Just shoot me an email in my contact tab. I'm well plugged into the men's work movement now, and I can at least point you in a direction to help you find something close to you that really resonates.
Yeah. Love the work that you're doing, Jason. And yeah, mate, it's been a very insightful and impactful conversation. And Mate, thank you so much for coming on and expressing your ideas. And I could talk about this topic for hours because I'm very passionate about this too. I think we're moving in a good direction, but there's a lot more work that needs to be done. And I also think too that there is a lot of improvement and more work to be done within the family home. The breakdown of the family
Hmm.
unit is a big problem, and also men lacking male role models in society. And I think it starts within the home.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. I'm right with you.
Yeah. Awesome, Jason. Thank you again, mate.
So good to be here with you. Thanks, James.
Thanks, mate.